podcasting, it's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot of work and it can be overwhelming putting all of these pieces of the puzzle together. But it's like every interview I learn, it's just like, okay, I interview this person right now because that nugget is what I needed to keep going to allow me to interview the next person and the next person. Welcome to the Networking with Michelle podcast, the show dedicated on providing you the how-tos of marketing and networking strategies. Here we believe in the Jim Rohn quote, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Hey everyone, welcome to a special episode of Networking with Michelle. Like, we are celebrating 100 episodes, and I was like, man, what can I do differently? What can I do differently? Maybe I should be on the other side of the microphone. So I brought in my good friend, Natasha Wade, to interrogate me. Natasha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm enjoying this honor of interviewing the crazy and consummate professional, Michelle Gomez.
As I'm wrapped in a blanket.
Yes.
On a Saturday.
Yes. So, hello everyone. My name is Natasha Wade. I am founder and CEO of Shatterbox Coaching and Consulting, where we help professionals to shatter the box they're in and live the life they want. And so with that, again, we do have the lovely pleasure of interviewing marketing strategist, connection strategist, guru, author, local celebrity, Michelle Gomez.
Oh, Lord.
And I do have some questions here for Michelle. But again, this is a conversation amongst friends and amongst respected colleagues. But we are going to learn a lot about Michelle, Networking with Michelle, the podcast. So about the podcast, the person, and the purpose. Michelle, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready for this roller coaster that we're about to put you through?
The podcast, the person, and the purpose.
Yes.
Sounds profound.
Yes.
But I enjoy talking to you. I always learn something about myself. So I thought this would be a good challenge to have this recorded. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, let's begin. Okay, so let's talk about it. 100th episode.
Yeah.
How does it feel to arrive at the 100th episode of Networking with Michelle?
It feels great. It's crazy when I look back 2 years ago and I didn't even know what a podcast was. And I was just trying to find a way to promote my book. And fortunately, the podcast community gravitated to me. And 2 people suggested I should have a podcast. And it's like, I feel like when 2 people say something, that's a confirmation, right? Mm-hmm. Not necessarily saying you should do it, but you should definitely look into it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. And then within 90 days, I was up and running.
Wow. Okay. So, I know you talked a little bit about kind of logistics of how it happened, but what was sort of the inspiring thought? What was the sort of thought that was a seed that brought it all to fruition?
Well, once again, I was doing a couple of interviews. I don't know what number I was on, but 2 of the hosts suggested I should have a podcast. And they just said I presented a lot of wealth of information, a lot of information during that interview. And this is information that needs to be consistent, right? Because the average interview is probably about 30 to 60 minutes. And it's like, he can keep going. And I don't know, it's just interesting. At the same time, I'm all about the thought leadership and being an expert. So it was also like, how can I expand my reach in the cheapest way possible?
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate. I went to Full Sail University. I have a MacBook Pro fully loaded with the Adobe software. I had a headset, and I didn't have to spend a lot of money when it came to the equipment. I reached out to my graphic designer, Studio 1816, for the podcast cover and a few other things. But it was simple. I joined John Lee Dumas's Podcasters Paradise, a community, that December of 2014. A Facebook group, webinars, and I was just learning, soaking it in. And like I said, 90 days later, I was up and running. And it amazes me the doors that have opened since I've become a podcaster. And one of the interviews, I did an interview with Podcasters Paradise. And one of the things I stated was, when I wrote my book, it allowed me to invite myself to other people's platforms. Mm-hmm. And now that I have a podcast, I can invite people to my platform. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes these are interviews, but at the same time, I connect with these people. I follow up with these people via email, social media. And it's definitely expanded not just the audience, but my network on a global scale as well.
Nice.
Blessed.
Very. So, I think you kind of, sort of meandered into this question, but tell us a little bit about when you think about how the show has evolved and how you evolved with it. What's been the thing that stood out about the experience?
Those first couple of interviews were rough. I've been going through listening to the interviews pretty much A to Z because I'm putting something together. So it's interesting time right now. My first or second interview was with, let me back up. My first interview was with Laquita the Merchant. And I remember she had a billboard. She graduated from University of Houston downtown. Mm-hmm. And her picture was a billboard on 59 and 610. Mm-hmm. And like you see it, she's a pretty lady. It's like you see and it's kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. Mm-hmm. Major intersection. So just think about the eyes, the traffic. And then, I don't know, fast forward and I'm sitting next to her at brunch. I was like, wait a minute, you're on the highway. And like, she was like, yeah. And then I was like, how did you get on the billboard? And she told me that process, which was cool. Cause you kind of wonder like, how do they select these people and the photography and all that type of stuff. But she was doing amazing things. She had put together some type of HR job app. And at that time, it was very fascinating to me. And she was the first person I interviewed. And I was stumbling and fumbling and I was copying other podcast formats. Yeah. And, but she, she was more than willing and grateful. And I was so appreciative. My second interview was my virtual mentor, George Frazier. And anyone that knows him, is definitely a thought leader in the African-American community when it comes to networking. And I remember I sent him an email. I was sick or I was okay. I sent him an email, took a nap, and this man responded by the time I woke up. Like, I didn't expect him to respond so quickly. Like, I was so nervous, I didn't even respond back.
Right. Yes. I know the feeling.
I was like, wait, you're supposed to take a couple of days.
Right.
But, he was my second interview. And I think that was the confirmation, right? Here's this man I just became hip to through my mentor. It was like, well, if you're going to do this, look into him. And he blessed me. And that was my second interview. And technology went wrong, couldn't get the computer working or whatever, had to record it on my phone. So that interview sounds kind of bootleg. But I mean, I took notes. I went back and listened and I still take notes. And you can't take those things away. And now, so that was early, I'll say spring, summer 2015. I mean, I've interviewed, had opportunities to have questions and conversations answered by the best of the best. Kirk Franklin was in town and, he was gracious enough to, sign the CD or whatever. And I was like, I just got one question, and I think this man is a gospel legend, / musical genius, right? Yeah. I don't think he gets credit for him being a musical genius, but more importantly, my question was, this man has worked with all types of artists, all genres, all these choirs. He puts these choirs together and formulates these amazing songs. No song sounds the same. And I asked him about teamwork. I'm like, he gets questioned enough about the artistry, but who's asking him about his business? And it wasn't a scheduled interview, but it was like, man, what is this? I got this man for 2 minutes. What is the one question I can ask him? And it was about teamwork. And it's just things like that. You can't take away that moment. And for me to be able to capture that moment on my phone, actually, that was on my phone, and turn it into a podcast that I'm able to be very selfish, right? Because these are my questions and my platform. And, I turn down people. I say yes to people. But then at the same time, to capture those moments and share it with people on a mass scale, That's what I enjoy the most. And it just amazes me. I could keep going, but yeah, just, whether it's a schedule thing, whether it's a spur of the moment, I'm just fortunate when people say yes. I'm like, wow, they really said, let me get my stuff together. they said yes. So I'm fortunate, very, very fortunate.
So that's insightful, because I think there's times when organic material comes out of something like that, and it's important to highlight a couple of lessons. So one thing that I heard is that sometimes in our minds, we may elevate someone to such an iconic level that we believe that they are no longer approachable or will never respond to you. And I think that's a huge lesson for your audience and mine, is that you should never be so afraid that you don't ask.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the most important things about just networking and building relationships, is opening your mouth and saying hello. I mean, it's even a biblical principle if we want to take it to the root. But you got to ask. But I think more importantly, even though I do hold some of these people to an iconic level, there's some people that I don't realize their influence in their industry until after the interview. And I'm like, oh, snap. Like, so it's like, sometimes I'm shocked before, I'm shocked after, but more importantly, is that they're just willing to carve out that 60 minutes of time with little old me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, okay. Once again, just always grateful. And podcasting, it's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot of work. And it can be overwhelming putting all of these pieces of the puzzle together. But it's like every interview I learn, it's just like, okay, I interview this person right now because that nugget is what I needed to keep going to allow me to interview the next person and the next person. So.
Yeah, and to that point, the nugget and just how it speaks to your skill and your preparation and your ability to improvise, that I think you asked the question, I'm not sure if you were conscious of it or not, but I have 2 minutes with this person. What is the one thing that I want to ask them that's basically going to have the most impact, right? And I think that's even something that we all have to remind ourselves when we're in the room with greatness. What's if we have 2 minutes, what are we going to ask them, right? We can ask them something frivolous. We can ask them something that we can maybe find on their website, but what's going to be the one thing that's going to give us the most mileage?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's like the reverse engineer the elevator pitch, right? So if you are stuck in the elevator for 30 seconds, how are you going to introduce yourself?
Yeah.
But more importantly, if you are going to a workshop or a seminar and you're in position to ask a question, are you asking a question to be noticed? Or are you asking a question to be memorable? And lots of times I shoot to be memorable.
Right.
I love Gary Vee. Big fan of his. Met him last year, literally this time last year, South by Southwest, at a book signing. And my question was something about in-house marketing versus outsourcing, right? Small business owners can't afford it. Big companies, they do both, right? They have the in-house marketing team and they still outsource and all that type of stuff. And he was like, that's a great question. And it's not, because I'm not thinking about how to increase my followers.
Yeah.
How do I get my Instagram followers to follow me to Snapchat? I'm like, I'm trying to go so beyond that when I have those people for that moment. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that, because it looks to me like you've had, just an illustrious roster of people. You talked about Gary Vee, which is an industry giant and marketing favorite. Master business coach Danny Creed, Paul Brunson, mentor entrepreneur, TV host Kirk Franklin, and Christine Saintville, better known as the Fly Mom Coach. So what aim or objective do you have in mind when choosing your guests?
With those people, I've been fortunate. Actually, Christine Saintville and Lamar Ronnie Tyler, that happened through a colleague because I was writing for a website. Shout out to Pancakes and Cider by Isom and Amber Washington and their newborn baby. So congratulations.
Yes. Congratulations.
So I was writing for their website, but I was like, hey, I'm not writing for you, but I have this podcast. I think we were starting at the same time. So it was really close. But I was like, hey, I got this podcast. Can I interview them for the podcast? I'll write the article. I'll submit the article to you first, and then the interview will come out later.
Right.
So they were like, cool. So this is a great idea when it comes to repurposing content, because everyone's like, how do I change all these formats and the timing and all that kind of stuff? So they set up some of those interviews, and then, we started, me and the guest would email, and I was like, hey, we're going to do double duty. So we're going to do the podcast. We're going to do a Skype call, Skype interview. I'm going to write the article, script the audio, put it on my podcast. So they're great. They're like, oh, I'm on a website, your website, plus iTunes. So it was a win-win for everybody,
right, Right.
But the fortunate thing was Lamar and Ronnie Tyler, I met them at a conference. So we were having that warm introduction through friends online. Went to a conference. They were there, did the interview after the conference, joined his Facebook group. The rapport is there, so we've been adding value to each other for 2 years now. Kirk Franklin and Gary Vee, that wasn't planned. It was just being at the right time, at the right place, and opening my mouth. Paul Brunson, the way our relationship, or I like to think our relationship is building, I really think that's divine. But that was just the email. That was just going to his website and reading. People don't read no more. That his email address was there.
Yeah.
And I sent him a pitch, and he was glad to do it. And hey, we still rocking and rolling 2 years later. So
yeah, and that's funny because you're right. I mean, people sometimes, they make it too easy to find them. They put their email, they put their phone number, they put their beeper number if they still got one. They put their social security number and still, yeah. So it's a good point. All right. So remind us again how old Networking with Michelle is. How long has this been? In
I believe April 6th, April 10th is 2 years. It will be 2 years.
Okay.
2015.
Got it. So Networking Michelle, 2 years old. What are you hoping she'll be when she grows up?
I go back and forth because I don't know if it's going to grow up or if it's going to stop. At one point early on in 2015, I was like, well, I could do 100 episodes and stop, Now I'm like, man, if I could put out an episode every day, because it's, there's the good problems to have where I have people that want to be on the show, and the way I schedule my interviews is it's like once every 2 months, right? And then in that space, I'm only doing interviews for 1 or 2 weeks.
Right.
So you get in when you fit in.
Right. Right.
And then you roll over.
Right.
So, people are trying to get on the show. I got people that I want to reach out to. So it's tough. I think overall, I want to get to the point where I become a top, this is really important to me, but a top African American podcast, right? And when I say African American, obviously I'm Black. I'm a Black podcaster, and the majority of my audience is Black. But at the same time, I don't think I've interviewed I have interviewed some Latinos. At the same time, I still want white people or Latinos to be able to come on my show because we're trying to reach the African American demographic, right? So I don't want them to be afraid or shy away from that, but it's my goal to be a top African American podcast.
So what do you think that'll do for the space in general, like in terms of people that may be looking at entering into podcasting?
Yeah, so that's the thing. I need to clarify that, a top African American business podcast. Because when I first started, a lot of the Black podcasts that I did see were focused more on entertainment / pop culture / gossip.
Right.
And I had a hard time finding some of the Black business podcasts. Another thing on top of that, 2 years ago, a lot of the, well, let me back up. A few of the Black business podcast shows that I did come across, they didn't have their face on the cover. So you didn't know if it was a Black podcast or not. Mm-hmm. And I intentionally had changed my podcast cover with my face on it so people can know that this is a Black podcast. So podcasting in itself is very small. It's very niche. A lot of Americans don't know about it. It's led by predominantly white males. Anyone that listens to podcasts, you know, they're on the higher end of the tax bracket, probably making more than $70K. Educated, so the demographics are very good because it's, you know, under professional development and people are always learning. But when it gets to the Black podcasters, it's still a little rocky, you know. And once again, a lot of it's focused more on the entertainment side, and the business folks are kind of speckled around. But it's a community, and I love the community as well.
Gotcha. Ready to switch gears?
Always ready.
All right, let's go to Michelle the person. So you talk a little bit on your website about, and you obviously have a full bio, so we're not going to sort of regurgitate that. But you talk about being a daughter of immigrant parents from Cameroon, you know, how you sort of cut your teeth in marketing as part of a hip hop music marketing street team, your journey in finance, and then to now as a marketing and connection strategist and entrepreneur. With all that said, what's the most important thing you hope people learn from your story?
Wow. There's so many things. Patience, timing. You have to listen to yourself, and it becomes very difficult to listen to yourself when you're ready to shift gears. I think I'm going through that right now to the point that I was probably about to start crying in the shower. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like I hear that whisper from God saying, like, it's time, get ready, you know? So just listening to yourself, trust, so cliche, right? Trust the process. I think that's the lesson I learned in 2014. But there's so many things that come along with the process, the people, the resources, the opportunities, exploring that. And don't be afraid to redefine your success or your outlook on life. Right? Because I think lots of times, and things are changing, I'm not a parent, but I'll say 15, 20 years ago, right? I graduated in 2000. So high school is all about preparing for college, about becoming what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, you cannot, once you make that plan, you cannot deviate away from that.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not true, my friends.
Yeah.
You can redefine your outlook on life, whether it's that career, relationships. And I think that's and you're going to grow. And I think that's what I want people to see from me now, as well as I'm trying to put all this as a legacy, right? That no matter the background, no matter your parents' relationships, you are your own person. Be patient with yourself. Find your voice, and be bold. You know, be bold and decisive with your moves when that time comes, because it's going to take a while. You know, I'm very indecisive, but once I decide, let's roll.
Okay. So we kind of know you, the people that love you and know you the most. We know you as sort of the full-time grinder and hustler. How does that buzzword balance fit into your world?
Oh, there is no balance. I don't believe in balance anymore. And definitely harmony, right? So I'm happy. I operate in the spirit of gratitude. And I try to, you know, pass that down to people as far as telling them I appreciate them, also telling them that they need to be in a spirit of gratitude. but there's no balance. I'm a Libra.
What does that mean?
So I'm supposed to have balanced scales in life, but trust me, they are not balanced. They're tipping.
Yeah.
But, I believe in harmony and there's seasons. And, when I came out with my book in September 2014 to October 2015, I was grinding. Like I don't remember how many speaking engagements I did, but I'll say within 2015, I went to like 6 conferences. I was promoting my book. Some of them I was speaking at. I did like 40 media interviews. For me, that was a lot. First time coming out, self-published book. And I was grinding and I was exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm a networker going in hiding.
Yeah.
We're going to end this season right here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was okay with that. A lot of people were trying to push me out of it, question me. When you're supposed to be networking, I'm tired, And I think we just have to be aware of our capacity, right?
Yes, talk about it.
We have to be aware of what we can take, when we can take it, I did that for myself. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I think, again, leveraging and sort of jumping off of that point, and I want to give a shout out to that throwback episode that you did with Ison Washington, which was a brilliant interview, by the way. You guys talked about that. And one of the things that he said that sort of metaphorically hit me in the throat was there is no balance.
Mm-hmm.
It's just life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think, especially for my audience who are working women,
mm-hmm.
more accurately, overworked women, about to be burnt out women, being able to say that sometimes balance may not be the word we're looking for. Harmony might be it. And being able to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to tap out for a little bit. So.
Yeah. And even with that, like I'm preparing to go again and I'm trying to get my mind right. Cause I'm like, well, Michelle, if you release this book, Connect with Confidence and whatever else this year, you got to get ready for that role, like role number 2, tour number 2. And even though I'm a single woman, I don't have any children, I'm still a woman. Yeah. I'm a professional. Mm-hmm. I'm a business owner. I'm a daughter. I'm a teacher. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of people pulling at me because with all of those roles, I'm a decision maker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's tough. So I can only imagine if I was married and someone's like, baby, what we gonna eat?
McDonald's.
Sorry. Our children pulling on at the end of my shirt, talking about mommy. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, because relationships is your space and your zone, how do you go about choosing who you invite into your space and who you exclude?
I've been very fortunate. When I was younger, I think the age of 13, I prayed for discernment.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think I have that gift of discernment where I can read people and I pick up the vibes and I can't always verbally express it, but I have that feeling and I just really rock with that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I do have good friends. I love my friends, but I'm also aware when I need to take a break from a specific friend.
Mm-hmm. So
I give myself permission to do that as well, whether I tell them or not. It's just something I need to do. And, at this point, it's about being surrounded by people that are like-minded individuals in all aspects of my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds very complicated and basic and boring, right? Because someone can say, well, if we're all like-minded in every aspect of life, we're all the same. There's no diversity. And that's not necessarily the case because we all have different experiences that we're going to shed light onto things.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why I say that is because, once again, going back to mindset, positivity, spirit of gratitude, spirituality, those are things that are my focal point. So even if I'm down, I don't want someone to keep me down, right? I don't want someone to be jealous. I want someone to lift me up. I want us to go back and forth in our celebrations. And I realized over the years that not everyone can celebrate with you.
Yeah.
Whether quietly or publicly. So it's just, I really go for feeling. And if I'm outgrowing from someone, hey, I don't like confrontation. I don't. I'm a punk when it comes to that. But hey, man, sometimes you just got to do it.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
All right. Well, let's end this segment with a powerful question of what's the top 3 things that bring Michelle Gomez joy in this life?
SVU marathons.
Me too. Ditto.
Yogurland.
Ditto.
Wow, the top 3. I think I said it earlier. My music. It's just really me. My music, doing work in my apartment. But I'll say this: good company, quiet time / peace of mind. Right. So it's not necessarily being home by myself on a Saturday, but even when you're with your company, just knowing that we're in that moment of positive stillness and just learning, no matter, I'm going to say learning in the broad sense, because I learn in so many ways, right? I learn by listening to music, by reading, podcasting. So those are the top 3 things.
You kind of had me at positive stillness.
Yeah.
That's a good one, Michelle. We'll go with that. All right, so
that was a shorter. I expected that one to be longer.
All right, drum roll, please. So we are at Michelle the Purpose. So let's talk about it. So you started off 2017 with what I thought were 2 powerful themes: year disruption and staying true to my narrative. Say more about that.
Yeah, so I'm 34 and I love my age, proud of my age. And when I turned 32, I really felt like I was coming into my own. Like I always felt that my thought process has been different than others. I've always been unorthodox with my thoughts and my perspectives. But I think I'm coming to age where that boldness is coming out, right? Mentally as well as verbally. And so so those are what those themes are about. Okay. Me coming into my own and vocalizing that,
right?
Sharing that with the world. Like, this is what I think. And I'm pretty sure the majority of y'all think like this too. Y'all just afraid to say it. That's why y'all have so many likes and hearts on my page. I'll take it. I'm not tripping, right?
Yeah.
But let's speak about it. Let's talk about these tough issues, whether it's mental health, whether it's relationships, intimate relationships. Let's talk about these tough topics because it's okay. Remaining true to my narrative. There's so many things behind Michelle Gomez, and I don't talk about my past a lot for many reasons. But just trying to get to the point where I feel comfortable sharing my experiences in various forms, whether it's podcasting, books, and I got a lot of writing I need to do. But yeah, just my perspective, my experiences allows me to speak freely, and people don't honor that about themselves. And I'm trying to honor that with myself, right? Because then hopefully I can help someone else and impact them, which later on down the line leads to great things, legacy at this point.
So you talked about something really profound there about being transparent or being more open about maybe those more concealed or not so communicated areas of your life. What do you think the power is in that, of telling that story of the Michelle that we don't know?
Well, I think it's a release, right? So not that I don't feel heavy. I don't have this burden on me anymore. But there was a time when I did, right? And if I was carrying that weight at the age of 20 or 30 and probably even a teenager, there has to be other women, other African-American women that are carrying something just as similar, right? But I do feel that when you tell your story, you're giving someone that encouragement, that light to share their story. You know, I had this young lady in my class, Christina, sweet soul, I think 23 years old. It's already a cancer survivor. And after class one day, we were just talking, and she told me her whole story on how she found out she had cancer and, you know, the process of just surviving. And it was me, her, and the other student. We were just in the room crying. And she was like, I've never told my story before. Wow. And I was like, are you serious? And she was like, yeah. She's like, you know, my family knows, but like my mom was there and she was telling my family about, you know, up to date, play by play. But she's like, I've never sat down and told the story to anyone. And I was like, you gotta tell your story. Like you need to be an MD Anderson volunteering, telling your story, because those are the people that need hope. Now that's a cancer survivor, so that's a little different. So you know you can go to a hospital volunteer and give these people hope, right? But sometimes people don't know where to go. People like me probably, I don't know where to go. Like do I go to a shelter? Where do I go to tell my story? Is it podcasting? Okay, maybe, I don't know, but that's the thing, like wherever you are and whatever platform you decide to create, you know, what part of your story you're going to share in order to help someone else.
Gotcha. So what have you found to be the challenges as well as the opportunities of carrying out those two purposes, year disruption and staying true to your narrative?
You know, the challenge is, are you ready? Are you ready to tell, right? And I think there's a couple of different reasons why I decided to go back to my therapist this year after a 3-year break. Is one, for me to be mentally prepared to whatever success or failure that may come, right? Because, you know, I think grandiose. I think I'm great, right? But I'm sure there's someone that can slap me on the face and I can fall flat on my ass, right? And even when that happens, I'm sure there's probably 3 other people lined up to pick me up. But even if those people pick me up, I still can't get a big head,
right?
You know, so I just got to figure that out along the way. But definitely wanted to be mentally prepared for that, because I think that will be a challenge. Like I only have 4 views on YouTube, but what happens if I have 4 negative comments on YouTube out of 96 positive comments?
Yeah.
And I mean, you hear it, but lots of times that's the stuff that fucks with people's mind. So I think those are the challenges right now. Once again, the opportunity is about saying, Michelle, you know, I appreciate you sharing your story, being bold. I went through this same thing, and, you know, listening to you helped me overcome. Or, you know, a lot of people have an entrepreneurship. This shit is hard. But no one talks about that. Like everything's good. Like, no, this shit is hard. Like I got a pack of ramen noodles in my pantry. Like I don't know if that's by choice or what. But you know, I just spent $1,200 on a coaching program.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out, right? But I don't think people won't even say that. They're like, oh man, it's all good. We just closed this deal. Like, it might be, you know, because trust me, I closed some deals on Monday. I closed a deal 2 weeks ago, and it's palm pause. And part of me was like, well, I said, okay, well, if we do this for a month, that's $1,500. This opportunity came up. It cost $1,100, $1,200. I wasn't even thinking about the profit. I'm just thinking it's going to take care of it.
Yeah.
But now that $1,500 deal's off the table.
Right.
And I've already paid. I've already started this program.
Oh, yes. The entrepreneur swan song. We all know.
You know,
yes.
I mean, do I have the money for it? Yeah. But, you know, I'm allocating money. Like, I thought it was going to flow this way. I thought it was going to flow through the ocean.
Yeah. Came out the
But-
ditch.
Now we got a creek. I'm like, wait a minute.
Exactly. Yeah.
That water looking really slim.
Yeah.
You know, but no one's talking about that, or no one's talking about, we're going through Women's Day, International Women's Day, just the struggle of womanhood, or being single, being Black. There's so many things. And I think those are opportunities that I want to touch, right?
Yeah.
It's very important. It's very important to me that I'm known within the African American community. Now, I don't know if that's Houston, national, or international, but it's very important to me that I'm known within the African American community, right? Whether it's credibility, thought leadership, whatever, because I want to do for my community.
Yeah.
And those are the opportunities I'm looking for, whether it's speaking, writing books, just overall advocacy in entrepreneurship, mental health, women business, sexuality, religion, or spirituality, like all the things that hit my core values and I'm aligned with. I want to be an advocate for those things. Therefore, I want other women and men to say, for them to have their coming out story, for them to support, for them to advocate. And I'm like, it's okay. I think, once again, going back to 15, 20 years ago, where you go to school for one thing and you do that for the rest of your life, we're in the arena where we can have, we can say, hey, I'm a multi-passionate individual. I'm an expert, or I'm an advocate in multiple disciplines. And I want to get to that point. And I think that's the opportunity I have. Because when I'm saying I'm remaining true to my narrative, it's the whole story, not part of the story. Not the business success that you may see through the interviews, but just everything that comes along with Michelle Crazy Gomez. I'm just trying to figure it out.
As we all are, right? Okay, so in your bio, you said you learned a couple of lessons through your story, and one of them is our relationships are our most vital resources. Yes, more than money. That's a bold statement. How so?
Because if you have the relationships in place, good, healthy relationships in place, and your left hand and money in your right hand, and the money's taken away, based off those relationships, you're probably going to be able to get the money back.
Right.
Eventually, right? Depending on whatever. So that's the reason why. It's not always about money, but maybe it's about, material. It's about, just overall resources. Can you give me a microphone for this interview? Like, right. That's one less thing to worry about. And just having those things. Like, I'm a big Scandal fan, and one thing that I came across recently was like the allegiance her team has to her. Right? But she's served each of those people in her team, but those people, like, they'll all die for each other. And you can't put a price on that. Right. You can't put a price on that type of a relationship. Right. You just, right. But if you're in trouble, I'll get all the money in the world. Even if I don't have any money, do I know who to call? Do I know how to put those things in place to, get you out of jail or whatever? Kidnap, thug life over here. No, but I mean seriously, I try to donate. I don't have a lot of money, but I try to donate as much as possible. Yeah. But that donation is based off of the relationship more so than the purpose. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And to even add to what you said, I think a lot of times we don't understand that relationships are a lot more of a powerful key in gaining us access than money. Money can only gain you so much access. Relationships, though, will get you far.
Relationships will get you far. That is unfolding right now.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about technology, because, of course, you're the relationship guru.
Oh.
Technology and social media, how do you think that's hindered us in building fruitful relationships? How do you think it's helped us?
Wow. I think that's what I like about J. Kelly Hoey's book, Build a Dream Network, Forging Relationships in a Hyper-Connected World. Yeah, that's it. had a peek.
Sorry, folks. Had a little bit of book check there. Yeah.
I love that title, and I was like, man, this is the book I was trying to write. But yeah, I mean that statement is a very true statement. It's a gift and a curse, right? Where we don't have time to make one-on-one phone calls after school anymore between 3 and 9 p.m. You know, but I can take 3 minutes or whatever to type this out, blast it out there, and reach the majority of my online audience regarding something, references, recommendations. So I think that's the great thing, right? But it's like anything in life. Social media is a tool. It's a good and it's bad, right? I think the bad things, people just misuse it. They put too much out there. Unfortunately, yesterday I came across something where this gangster, and a real gangster, not the play gangsters I'll be talking about, but but a real gangster. What was this, Chicago or Minnesota? Somewhere. He was in his car driving. Someone was in the passenger side. I don't know if it was the passenger recording. This other guy was in his car, got out, words were exchanged. The gangster driver just shot him in the leg.
Wow.
Like, recorded on Facebook. And I'm like, I don't know what happened in the story, but it's like, if you don't go to jail, you know, and I think that's the misuse of social media, right? I don't need to see that. We don't need to see that. And just a lot of craziness. So it's hard to say. Even with the business, I think that can be tricky. I'm a private person. People tell me I don't promote enough. Sometimes there's people that promote too much. I think that can be tricky. But I think overall, use it for good. You know, once again, share your message. What are you going to put out there? You know, what quote, Bible verse are you going to do to inspire people? And some people don't like that either. But overall, social media is good. It's good. Yeah,
I can agree with that. All right, so of course, people are going to want to know. Your most faithful fans are going to know what's next for you. What projects, what initiatives, what can we look forward to in the future?
Yeah, so currently I am writing a book. It should be released at the same time, hopefully, called Defining Success. And what I'm doing is I'm going to talk about how my view of success has evolved over the years. And even from like when I was a child, and I'm going to leave it at that, when I was a child, and what does success mean up to now, to the age of 34. And excuse me. And then also I'm going to, at the end of my interviews, I ask my guests, how do you define success? So I'm putting all of their quotes in that book as well. So that should be coming out soon. I'm still working on Connect with Confidence. I've been feeling inspired lately. So hoping to get that out, keep the podcast rolling, and, you know, just cultivating my message around networking, relationship building, and, you know, speaking opportunities.
Gotcha. Yeah. So in the spirit of asking, you know, in your tradition of how do you define success, we're going to ask it a little bit differently, though, because I'd like to commemorate the 100th episode with a question. So in 100 years, what will the legacy of Michelle Gomez be?
100 years from now, I would like for people to think of me as a true advocate when it comes to being an African-American woman entrepreneur. You know, so that's the simplest way I can put it. I'm pro-business, but at the same time with that, I understand comes education. You know, so I want to definitely position myself over time to do something in the education space. You know, I still want to teach. I want to teach on a greater level at a university, preferably at HBCU. So education, in that sense. Have a successful business, employ people, once again, support women. But I know not for everybody. It's just not a straight path into women entrepreneurship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say the advocacy is so important, because it's the other things that come in between it, the sexuality, the mental health, the responsibility, the decision maker, but being an advocate through that whole process of women entrepreneurship.
Okay. Well, that actually concludes our amazing peek, more than a peek into Michelle Gomez's world and networking with Michelle. Michelle, thank you for giving me the honor, the huge honor of interviewing you. It's so enjoyable.
Yeah, I just, like to talk, run my mouth.
Well, we all do. I'm addicted to running my mouth too. So you chose the right person.
No, and I'll say this, defining success, what I've come to learn, it is the continuous elevation of awareness while maintaining and influencing healthy relationships with your family, friends, and angels. So,
oh my God.
But it's always changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. Networking with Michelle. I appreciate you, the listeners. I would love to hear some positive feedback or any feedback, right? Don't want to
taint the
I just want positive, positive reinforcement only. But no, I do appreciate everyone, and just grateful for opportunity. Grateful for those that have been listening, whether it's 1 day or 2 years. You are appreciated. I know you can be doing so much with your time, but you have been faithful to allow me to come in between your ears on a regular basis. But personal connection leads to an influential network. Thanks for networking with Michelle.